Hello, I'm Aziz Haniffa, and today we are on the trail with Suhas Subramanyam, State Senator for Virginia's 32nd District, who is running for the U.S. Congress from District 10 in Virginia, which is an open seat since it's going to be vacated since the incumbent Jennifer Wexton has medical issues and is not running for re-election. Suhas, wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much.
And here's to you becoming the sixth Indian American in the US Congress. And as Raja Krishnamurti jocularly says, join the Samosa caucus.
Yes.
There are already, I believe, 13 candidates in the fray. And before you win the congressional seat, you get through the primary, which is on June 18th. How are your plans? What's your strategy? How do you intend to win the primary with so many candidates in the fray?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's great to be talking to you. First of all, I'm very, very excited about the prospect of being in Congress and being a voice for Northern Virginia. I think this is a huge moment because, a lot of the inquiries I get to our office already as a state senator are about federal issues, and I go above and beyond on trying to help our community when it comes to that, whether it's immigration, whether it's working with a federal agency. What excites me about this is it's an opportunity for me and for my team to be able to help our community at a bigger scale and get a lot of great things done. And so, as far as strategy, the long story short is I represent a lot of the district already in the state Senate, and the people I don't represent, I know those communities well. Prince William County I've represented before, Fauquier County, I have great ties there, and Western Loudoun County as well. And so, these are communities I know really well. My family has a 40-year history in this community, and this is where my wife and I got married. This is where my kids were born. And so I feel like I know this community well, and this community trusts me the way I trust it. And so I'm just going to go out and talk about my positive vision for the future, and I think that'll be enough to get us over the top.
Just to quickly circle back, hardly a couple of weeks after you won the state Senate that you jumped into the fray in terms of running for the US Congress. Why did you do that? Was it just because it became an open seat? And Jennifer Wexton had decided not to run?
Yeah, life happens and things happen, and when there's an opportunity to serve, I've always stepped up. So, last year my state senator, John Bell, decided to retire in the state house. He asked me to run to replace him, and I did. And we didn't expect, Jennifer Wexton didn't expect to have health issues. And, we worked really well with her office over the years. But, when she retired, the reality is that we need to keep this seat blue, and if you're from a Democratic perspective, and we need to keep this seat in the hands of someone who knows the community really well, who's represented it. And so, Jennifer Wexton, when she ran herself, she hadn't finished her Senate term and stepped up to run for Congress when she was asked. And so I'm following in her footsteps and doing the same thing, like many others who in Virginia who've also done the same thing, going from the state Senate to Congress without finishing their first term.
You said that the District 10 already has many constituents from District 32. How much of an advantage is that going to be for you?
It's a huge advantage. I think the hardest thing to do in politics is to have name recognition and favorability, and those are things where we're very strong. The reality is, I've won several elections in Loudoun County, which is more than half the seat, and people trust me. When they reach out to my office, I don't ask them if they're a Democrat or Republican. I don't ask them where they come from or whether they voted for me. I help them anyway, and then they'll text me on election day, hey, I voted for every other office. I voted for a Republican, but for you, I voted for a Democrat because you always answer my calls. You're always there for me. And so, I know this community well. It knows me well, and we're excited at the prospect of representing it in Congress.
And I remember covering you and interviewing you when you ran for the state assembly. And before that, you had the track record of being a congressional staffer, and you worked with Senator Dick Durbin. And you were also in the Obama administration as one of the technology advisors there. Do you believe that that track record and the fact that you have served in the administration, served in the Congress as a staffer, is also enhances your credibility in terms of the race you're running?
Yeah, people want a couple things. They want, that I'm hearing at least, one, they want energy and then they want experience. And so, they see someone, sort of my age and they say, okay, he's got a lot of great energy, but does he have the experience? And one of the things our campaign is focused on is talking about my experience, because I've served in every branch of government. I worked for a federal judge. I've worked on the Affordable Care Act on Capitol Hill. I worked with Dick Durbin on the DREAM Act. And then I worked in the White House as a technology advisor to President Obama. And I worked on some of the toughest technology issues facing our country, like AI, cybersecurity. And so I have the experience to get things done in Congress and to take on the toughest fights. The reality is, these days, we have a lot of hard challenges that people are shying away from, and people are worried about their next election, not what's going to happen 10 and 20 years down the road. So I've got the experience and I've got the energy to be able to take on these tough fights and win.
And no one can accuse you of being a carpetbagger. You're just a native of Virginia, of Loudoun County. Your parents are both physicians. Your sister is also a physician. And so you are the native as it goes in terms of the constituency you are hoping to represent. So is that not just an advantage, but the fact that you have interacted already with a lot of your constituents, is that going to be a major plus?
Yeah, but I'm the non-physician in the family, so I'm the black sheep. I didn't do the doctor, lawyer, engineer. I mean, I'm a lawyer, but I didn't do doctor, engineer. But as far as our campaign strategy, all I'll say is we're knocking on doors right now as a campaign, and we're meeting people who have met me personally when I campaigned in previous years. Because I went and I knocked tens of thousands of doors over the past 3 or 4 years within this district, and really made those connections with people. Many of them, much of the people who are contributing to our campaign live in the district because they trust me and they know me, and so it is an advantage, certainly. I think also just our message of trying to build a brighter future, trying to take on tough fights, trying to take on issues that are very local to here, and winning, I think is a message that's unique to our campaign. And so I think the combination of people knowing who I am and also agreeing with my vision for the future is going to be a huge plus for us.
In a general, too, every vote counts, but more so in a primary. And in a primary, when you've got almost like 12 or 13 candidates, every vote is going to count. And there is already another Indian American in the fray too, Crystal Call. And you were telling me that there is also a Nepali American. There is also a Pakistani American. Is there any concern that each one of you might cannibalize each other and take away votes from one another, and that could be something of concern? How are you addressing that? I know Loudoun County is Telugu country, and you want to get all the Indian American votes that you can. But when there are South Asian Americans, Indian Americans also in the fray, how do you weave yourself through that mass of people who probably are having one candidate or the other in their mind?
I don't run as the Indian American candidate or any other type of candidate, certainly not. I don't lead with that necessarily, but I run as a proud Indian American, a proud South Asian, someone who has the immigrant experience from their family, and knows,
also was the first ever South Asian to be elected.
The first Indian, South Asian, Hindu, others, and but the reality is, I've rejected just running and governing based on identity politics because it alienates the people who are not Indian American. And so my first race, I ran against 2 other South Asians in a 4-person race. And then one a non-South Asian, but who was, she was of Southeast Asian descent, Filipino descent. And people thought, oh, they'll all split their votes, this and that. I campaigned in all communities, and I ended up splitting the South Asian vote, but I won other communities soundly because I went up to everyone. I went to every church, mosque, temple, synagogue. Didn't matter, who's home. Sometimes didn't even matter if they were Democrat or Republican. I just went up and I presented ideas to everyone. And I think when people see, oh, these South Asians are going to split their vote, I disagree. I think that people will also see the trust that they've put in me over the years versus someone that they're just meeting for the first time. It makes a big difference. And so we feel very confident that this is not going to be determined based on how much of the Indian vote I get. I'm going to get everyone's vote. I'm going to try to start by getting 100% of the vote in this race. And if I only get 33 or 50, that's fine. But we are a campaign that's inclusive, and we talk to everyone, and we have the same message for everyone, which is a positive vision for the future and taking on tough fights.
You've got the endorsement of the Indian American Impact Fund, which is one of the most influential groups among the Indian American community, and also Shekhar Narasimham, who is like a long-time godfather of the democratic activists in the country. Were you happy that you got those endorsements? I know endorsements really don't say too much, but getting endorsements is good anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are sophisticated groups that know how to win elections, and they've supported me because they want to see more Indian Americans, South Asians get elected to Congress. And they see what we see, which is the hard numbers and the feeling on the ground, which is that we have a very good chance of winning. If not, you could say we're the favorite, I would say. And so, that's great. It's a great way of, I can say that I've got a great shot of winning, but it's great when there's other groups that are coming along that are also agreeing that we have a great shot of winning. We're going to be announcing a lot of other endorsements coming up, none of which are Indian American or South Asian. Like I said, we don't just focus on Indian American votes or issues. We focus on issues that affect everyone. And so, but we're proud to be a campaign that has built a broad coalition.
Can you talk about some of the main core issues that you're going to focus on? I know that healthcare issue, sensible gun control, things like that are at the core of your agenda. Can you elaborate on some of the issues that, if elected to Congress, you're going to focus on? And considering that you have a track record, having worked with Durbin and others in terms of healthcare policy, Obamacare, etc., and also as a technology advisor in the White House, what are some of the major issues that you're going to focus on? And also considering the fact that as a freshman congressman, it's tough to really get legislation through, in fact, get it through the Rules Committee. How are you going to make a dent in that?
Sure, yeah. So people told me the same thing when I ran for the General Assembly. They said, as a freshman legislator, you're not going to get much done. Just be seen but not heard, and just bide your time. And so the first couple bills that I introduced, they kind of were major changes on policy in Virginia. One, I took on a toll road that goes through Loudoun County. They were price gouging us. I passed the very first bill that ever actually stopped tolls from increasing. And then the second one was making sure that Dominion Energy, the monopoly utility company, was not overcharging us on our utility bills. And these policy changes saved Virginians hundreds of millions of dollars. They were huge shifts in policy, and so I know that just one legislator can make a difference. What I want to see is I'm seeing right now a small group of lawmakers hold Congress hostage right now, and so that's headlines, and it's bad for our country. For our community here, though, it also means that businesses close. People go without paychecks, because there's a lot of people here in Loudoun County, Prince William County, Fauquier County, Fairfax County, who frankly just don't, they work with the federal government, and that's a huge deal for them. And so we have to, last time there was a government shutdown, the food pantries were overrun. I got calls to my office asking for help. And so that is very personal to our community, and we have to address it. Gun violence prevention is also personal to me. I mean, my daughter goes to a preschool, and they've got 4-inch thick doors and bulletproof doors and windows, and they have armed security throughout the day for 30 preschool kids. And the reality is, we wanted that as parents because we don't feel safe with our kids going to preschool, and the kids in the high schools and middle schools do active shooter drills. I don't want my kids, I've got a 2-year-old and 4-year-old girl, I don't want to see them with the future that involves being in fear of gun violence long term. And so we had an assault weapons ban in the 90s. I think we can bring it back. I think it's possible, but these are things that I think we can do. We can make those major shifts. We just have to have people who are willing to take them on. People who don't care about their political next election, they care more about what's going to happen to their kids' future. And that's me. And that's why I've never cared about job security. I've cared about what's good for the community. And it's served me well. It's helped my job security by not caring about my job security.
And I know you've been a strong proponent for women's reproductive rights. And there was the GOP who, in fact, wanted you kept out of houses of worship because you had been a strong proponent of that. How are you going to be very very active and very forceful in fighting for women's reproductive rights?
Absolutely. I've supported it, putting reproductive rights in the Virginia Constitution, and I'm going to support putting it in the U.S. Constitution if we need to. But certainly, we need to pass a law that allows for women to be able to access reproductive health care across the country. It's very important to me. It's important for my kids. My daughters, again, I don't want their reproductive rights in jeopardy in the future. And so a very important issue, and frankly, it's one that I wish wasn't so partisan, wasn't so caught up in politics, because I think it's common sense. Same with gun violence, same with some of these other issues.
And you've been always someone to run a very positive campaign from the days of running for the state assembly through the state senate, etc. And in this polarized atmosphere and environment, obviously the primary is going to get down and dirty. And then if you are successful in the primary, running in the general is going to be even dirtier. How are you going to keep this track record of yours of running a very positive campaign, just taking, not dealing with the polarization that's around you? How are you going to make it? Because definitely there is going to be a lot of things thrown at you.
Yeah, I think, I go back to when I was raised by my parents, they told me that not to get involved in politics because it was a dirty game and everyone just attacks each other. And so when I became elected, I will, tell someone when I think that they're wrong. And I will say, maybe the governor said this and I disagree with that. But I certainly don't attack him personally. I even try to message in a positive way, because in the end, I don't want to turn people away from politics. I think it's very dangerous if all we're doing is attacking each other all the time. We get less done together. Even when I pass legislation, I always try to find Republicans to support my bills, because I think that's, if you want to make lasting change, you need to build broad coalitions. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. And so that's served me well. That's how I've taken on tough fights and won them, is if all I did was talk to Democrats, I wouldn't have gotten nearly as much done as I have. And you have to have a thick skin for this as well. People call my office and to yell at me, and my office number is my cell phone number, so I'll answer, and they'll stop yelling at me when I listen to them. They'll start yelling, and at the end, I'll say, I don't agree with you, but you know what? I'm so glad you shared, and you can come to me, and you can always share your feelings with me, even if we don't agree. And that means a lot. Those are the people who then come out and vote for me when they're voting for every other Republican. I think that's the brand of politics I'd like to see, and so if it's not cool to be bipartisan, it's not cool to be nice right now. It certainly doesn't get me as many Twitter likes. But to me, I think what's most important is what's going to be best for the community, and that is building broad consensus.
Let alone partisan politics and identity politics. In our own community, we've got some of the older generation, unfortunately, who brought some of the baggage from back home, the politics baggage, the religious baggage, every other baggage that you can think of. How are you going to straddle some of the differences in our very own community in terms of how you handle issues of all kinds of politics and some of the baggage that they brought back from home?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many ways to divide us. I just think of even the Indian community in Loudoun County. People try to divide us based on religion, based on which part of India, even within that part of India, which caste, even within that caste, which locality. So if you want to sit back and try to, there are people who gain by dividing us, right? And so I've seen that happen. I've just tried to be someone who's a consensus candidate, someone who will serve everyone regardless of where they come from, who they worship, who they love, who they represent. I try to reject that politics of division, and that served me well. That's how I've navigated it. Certainly there's going to be issues where two sides disagree, and I may agree with one side, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop talking to the other side. Far from it. I'm going to talk to them more. I'm going to make them feel more heard and more welcome. And so that's the way I handle it.
And finally, two final questions. One, in terms of if you are elected to the U.S. Congress and get to represent the 10th District, what are maybe one or two or three of the initial legislation that you intend to introduce? I know you probably have a lot of affinity for healthcare, for gun control, etc. Is there anything in your mind that you've already thought of, which would be some of the initial legislation that you would introduce?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I want to put in our rules something that says that we have to fund our government automatically. That the threat of we have to get rid of the threat of shutdowns, and whether it's the debt ceiling or whether it's putting something in the rules that automatically funds government, we have to address that issue so it's no longer a threat to our community. The second thing, like I mentioned, I want to see if we can do an assault weapons ban. I'd like for us to push it, whether it's me introducing it or someone else. I'd like to push forward on that issue. And third, I was proud to work on the Affordable Care Act. It was a great bill, but there's a lot of things we didn't address in it. A lot of things we said we'd come back and fix. We fixed maybe 10% of it, but there's so much more we can do. Prescription drug pricing, the price of healthcare generally, we never really addressed that in a more meaningful way. I'd like to see us bring down healthcare costs for people, make it more accessible, make it more affordable, and cover everyone.
And finally, a foreign policy question. For a guy who covered the India-US relationship from the dog days of the Cold War, when India was considered a surrogate of the erstwhile Soviet Union, and when foreign policy by the US was a case of the good guys and the bad guys, if you're not with us, you're against us, to the relationship that it is today, an unbelievable, strong, strategic relationship. How are you going to foster that US-India relationship, and more generally the US-South Asia relationship? Because there are still in our region there is abject poverty, there is all kinds of other problems, and the US has through the years, through organizations like the U.S. Agency for International Development, etc., helped that region. How are you going to keep on fostering that relationship?
Absolutely. I found that just by being son of Indian immigrants, that I get pushed into the fray of that. But I've been I've been willing throughout my career to get involved in that. So on Capitol Hill, in the White House, whatever issue I was working on, there was a role for India to play. I think the economic ties are obvious, and we should continue to foster them. I think the strategic ties, the military ties, are obvious now, and we should continue to foster them. And I look at foreign policy as we need to be a country that promotes peace long term everywhere we go. And so having a relationship with India, a strong relationship with India, is a way to promote peace, especially if we're going to look at the relationship we have with China right now, the relationship we have with Russia right now. India is a great strategic partner in Asia, and the relationship is one that we need to prioritize.
Thank you very much, Suhas, and wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much, and you can visit suhasforvirginia.com for more information.
Thank you very much, and this is Aziz Haniffa signing off, and till the next time, all the very best.